Hello, and welcome back. This is Miss V, and you're here with the history vibe. Let's talk about World War II and how World War II begins. And if you remember from the last unit, there was a lot going on in Europe, especially during the interwar period, which was before or after World War One. A lot of things was happening, and because of that, that led us into World War II. So let's go ahead and start. So if you notice this guy right here, this was from our last video, that is Adolf Hitler, and he was a soldier during World War One. And a lot of the beginnings of World War II had to do with Adolf Hitler and his idea of creating this so-called Aryan race or Aryan nation, because he believed that the Aryan race was superior to all other nations or nationalities or ethnicities. And in order to become this great power or this great nation that he envisioned, that Germany would have needed more land to support such a large population. So that was his goal, and that was his drive to set out for. And because of that, that led up to the steps or the factors to start World War II. Okay. So it all began when Hitler violated the Treaty of Versailles. So how did he do that? Well, first, he created this new air force and began a military draft. Before, if you remember, in the interwar period, Germany was supposed to be demilitarized, right? That was one of the factions or one of the stipulations in the Treaty of Versailles, right? However, when he created this new air force and this new military draft, France, Great Britain, and Italy were wagging their fingers like, not supposed to do that. But they didn't do anything further. No consequences was done to Germany, right? On top of that, a year later, 1936, he decides to take troops into that area that the arrow is pointing and called the Rhineland. Now, France had every right to use military force against the violation of the Treaty of Versailles. But because France did not get support from Great Britain to use force, they pulled back and they didn't do anything. Now, this is the start of this idea of appeasing or appeasement of Hitler, and we'll go more into what appeasement is in a little bit. Now, there were new alliances that were formed as well. If you remember, we talked about Benito Mussolini in the last unit. Benito Mussolini of Italy also dreamed about having the reestablishment of the great Roman Empire, especially from modern times. So he decided in 1935 to invade Ethiopia. Again, France and Britain started wagging their fingers, was like, no. And Mussolini kind of got pissed. He was like, oh, how are you going to tell me what to do, France and Britain? So because he was so annoyed and angered by the reaction of France and Britain, but he was supported by Hitler, the two of them started to connect, sort of, in terms of common interests, which is resisting communism. Both of them were very anti-communist, so they formed this pact or this axis called the Rome-Berlin Axis, and that was their pledge in trying to suppress or resist communism moving into their countries and territories as much as possible. Another alliance comes into the foray here as well with the Anti-Comintern Pact. Germany and Japan also signs an alliance to have this goal of stopping the spread of communism to their territories and countries. And later on, Italy is going to join this Anti-Comintern Pact as well. And this is the signing of the Anti-Comintern Pact by the German ambassador. So while all of that is happening, Hitler is also seeing Germany as this great world power, and it's becoming a world power. And he, of course, wants more land. And he's convinced that France nor Great Britain are going to interfere with these plans. So he decides to pursue one of his other goals, which is annexing or joining Austria with Germany. And that was called Anschluss. Okay? And he threatens Austria with invasion, and he forces the Austrian chancellor to allow the Nazi party to take control of the government, and then issues this referendum vote. This is the actual referendum vote that was sent in Austria. Now, if you can tell me in Edpuzzle, what is the problem? There is a big problem with the design of this referendum vote. If you can tell me in Edpuzzle, and for my class, if you can tell me in Edpuzzle, I have a special prize for you. So by 1938, Hitler annexed Austria to Germany, right? Because he had his way. So yeah, tell me what you think is wrong with this particular referendum vote and the design of it. If you can tell me that in Edpuzzle or in the comments, I'll have something for you. So, again, appeasement. You're gonna hear this a lot in this beginning part of the war and how it started. Hitler, 1938, he's continuing to make these demands. He demands, not asked, but demands that he be given the Sudetenland, which is the northwestern area of Czechoslovakia, and a lot of Germans inhabit that area. Britain and France, they're kind of like, what's happening and what's going on? What are you asking for, right? What is this? So they hastily or quickly arranged this conference to meet, and all of the British, France, German, Italian representatives, in this case Hitler is there on his own behalf, meet together to discuss Hitler's demands. Hitler lays out his plans, but instead of reaching some form of agreement and saying, okay, well, we'll allow this, but we're not going to allow that, blah, 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 they give in to all of his demands, virtually all of them. And this is the point, or this high point, of where Britain and France are really appeasing or allowing Hitler to have his way, just to avoid getting into a war. And that's what appeasement is in this case. Appeasement is allowing someone, in this case a country, or Hitler in this case, to have his way to avoid something, right? In this case, they are trying to avoid going to a full-out, blown-out war, because we just came from World War I. They don't want to get into war again, so they're allowing Hitler, or appeasing Hitler, to do what he wants to do. Okay? And this is the Munich Conference in Germany. This is Hitler. This is Benito Mussolini and Neville Chamberlain and some the French. I forgot the French ambassador here at this conference. So now Neville Chamberlain, I just mentioned him. He was the British Prime Minister, and he came back from the Munich Conference, and he's boasting, "Hey, we got peace. You know, there's not gonna be any war. Woohoo! We did it. And he said Hitler promised that he would not make any more demands. So don't worry, there's not going to be any war. Winston Churchill was like, I don't know about that, yeah. Winston Churchill was like, you keep giving in to Hitler, he is going to take a whole mile. He is going to run circles around y'all if y'all keep this up, right? But Chamberlain believed that Hitler and the Nazis were satisfied with all of the demands that they had, and they're not going to pursue any more, right? By 1939, Hitler started to move his troops into parts of Czechoslovakia. Okay. So by 1939, Hitler invaded and took control of the western part of Czechoslovakia, and even the eastern part, which was Slovakia, even became a puppet or state-controlled area of Nazi Germany. Now, finally, there was no more appeasement. After taking control of Slovakia, they're like, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. You know, Great Britain and France are like, this is a problem. This is clearly, he is not going to keep his promises. No duh. Right? So, Hitler now demands the Polish port of Danzig, which is in Poland, right? Poland is an alliance or an ally of Great Britain. And Great Britain saw this as a threat or a danger to Poland. And they said, hey, Poland, you know, if Hitler and Germany, if they start to come into to attack you, we got you. Okay? So now what's gonna happen? Now, this is a picture of a woman in Czechoslovakia, and the Nazi Party has just came in and taken over the area. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether people believe if she is crying tears of joy or is she crying tears of sadness or pain. Because as you see here, she does have her hand with the signal of the Nazi sign or the Nazi Party. But they're not quite sure because this is Czechoslovakia and the Nazi Party just came in to take over. So what do you think? Is she giving us, is this a picture of a sign of joy or is it a sign of anguish and pain? Tell me what you think. So again, more appeasement. Many in the West, including Great Britain and France, they don't believe that Hitler is going to go any further. He is going to stop. He's fine. He's satisfied. He's not going to go into Poland. Yeah, right. So, but he does believe, Hitler does believe that the Soviet Union is going to make an alliance with the West, with Britain and France, like they were in World War I. So, Hitler decides to make a pact, a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, and publicly through radio and newspapers and speeches says that Germany and the Soviet Union are never going to attack each other and they're going to remain neutral just in case any war happens. The West are like clutching their pearls because they're like, wait a minute, isn't Germany, isn't Hitler anti-communist? And he's aligning himself with a communist? Say what? They're clutching their pearls, literally, right? But under the guise of all of this, Hitler and Stalin been playing games. They knew that they needed to buy time so that they can figure out a plan to launch an attack and really invade Poland, and then they would split that land between the both of them so that they can have spheres of influence or control over certain ports and areas. See? That was the real play. And that is going to lead us into the actual spark of what starts World War II. So we'll come back and talk more about how that spark began.